remember that your first car had to be a Volkswagen Golf, as your parents would tell you, because the Germans do everything best and any other manufacturer that's not German is dodgy, such as Japanese, Korean, you name it. So as a result, when I first got my license, I got a Volkswagen Golf. And you know, it's a good car. It does set the standard for what a hatchback should sort of be. And it's a safe, reliable, conservative choice. But I just wasn't quite getting enough out of it. And then I recently learnt manual, so I thought I had to change. So I took a leap of faith and I bought a Hyundai i30SR. And I hope my parents are listening because I've got no regrets whatsoever. The i30SR always had the dynamic ability that it should have had to be badged an SR, but it seemed that Hyundai was always missing something, and that component was always the engine. You know, they kept it as a 2-litre naturally aspirated 4-cylinder engine that produced 126 kilowatts and about 200 newton meters of torque. And yeah, those figures are okay, but even for a warm hatch, it's right on the bottom end of the spectrum. And it's an engine that you now find in the normal models of the new i30s. So it never had the grunt to match the looks. However, that's all changed now in this new model because Hyundai has taken the 1.6 litre turbo shared with the Veloster Turbo and the Elantra SR and put it in this heavily revised hatchback. And the result is now this car offers an experience that makes it feel a lot more like a warm hatch, like it should be. And it's not even on the bottom spectrum, it's more on the top end of the scale, and it's close to even competing with the likes of the Golf GTI, even though it's not quite there, but you get the gist. I got to say, I mean, for a Hyundai, it's just surprising, you know, getting in and then realizing just how much grunt this has, because it's just not something that you expect. So, because this car now has a turbo, there's quite a surprising amount of mid-range torque, and you find yourself getting the speed quite quickly and having to change gears and then slow down sooner than you expect. Part of that is because the gear ratios are also quite short, so because of that the car's always in its peak torque range, and you don't have to go too fast to reach the red line. But it's fun. I mean, this car has a very simple torquey character, and the result is it becomes quite a fun thing to drive, especially when you want to take the back way through some twisties. But with that said, it's also more than suitable for highway driving because you've got that independent rear suspension, so the ride quality is quite good. To your seat, the exhaust starts shouting, pretty sharp. Throttle response becomes a bit more immediate, and you'll find yourself smashing through corners with a fair bit of confidence thanks to that hatchback setup, so it's never too intimidating, and it's a good feeling. For people who drive this car for the first time, they may find it a little bit foreign in terms of the feel of the clutch and its length. But it's absolutely perfect for spirited driving because it's a short throw and a short bite point, so it's pretty easy to just bang through gears and quick shift and also heel and toe. And when you get it right, it's so satisfying and rewarding. You know, it's just a sensation that the car's not doing it for you, you're doing it yourself. Everything that's just happened is because of you. There's no automation. And it just gives you such a confidence boost of your driving abilities. So whilst this car is quite a fun thing to drive, it does have a few downfalls, and its biggest limitation is probably its tyres. They're Hankook Ventus Prime 2s, and as a daily tyre, they do quite well, but when you want to treat this car a bit like a hot hatch and drive it in a bit of a spirited way, they do break traction a little bit too easily, and if the road is not dry, or even if it's just a little bit damp, then you're just going to be slipping up non-stop. And this car also has a very sensitive traction control system, so as soon as you break traction and the car picks up that one wheel slipping, it's just going to cut power, and it doesn't just cut it for half a second, it cuts it for 3 seconds. And over time it does get annoying, so the next thing you realise is that you're turning your traction control system off to get the best out of this car, and obviously that's not the safest thing to do. Really, this car is a little bit like a school computer. You know, at least if you go to a private school, you'll get something like a MacBook or an iPad, and to the eye it looks absolutely amazing and you just know the potential that it has. But it's limited by a very strict school system, and in order to get the best out of it, or the most out of it, you've got to somehow bypass that security system. It's kind of, the car's exactly like that. It's got the potential, but to sort of get the best out of it, you've got to turn off the traction control, because with it on, it's just too sensible. And given the nature of this car and, you know, the type of market it's trying to attract, Hyundai should have just put the walls down a little bit. Let it be a bit more free, let it be a bit more agile, let it be a little bit more silly. You know, that's what a performance hatch is meant to be. Now, the first thing you'll notice when you get in this car is just the amount of red highlights it has. I mean, it's got a red gear knob, it's got red highlights around the drizzle and climate system, it's got red stitching around the gear knob, it's got red stitched leather seats, it's got red highlights around the air vents, and it's also got red seat belts. Now, all this is perfect if you're a race boy, but you know, if you're an average consumer who's going to buy this car mainly for highway driving and not to be obnoxious, yeah, I think it will be a little bit too much for them. But anyways, at least it keeps it somewhat vibrant and alive. I mean, let's be honest, all black would be pretty boring. As for the quality of materials, it is better than average, but it's not quite as posh as, say, a Volkswagen Golf. You do get soft plastics on the door trim as well as on top of the dashboard, but if you do move below the dual zone climate system and sort of towards the handbrake, yeah, that just says it all. You will get stuck in a ton of hard plastics. The infotainment screen as well, it does leave a bit to be desired. I mean, Hyundai has just done what most other car manufacturers are doing nowadays and just sticking a big fat screen on top of the dash and hoping for the best. Despite its impressive size, you know, it's 8 inches. The resolution is a cut below that offered in like a Volkswagen Golf or a Mazda 3, and so is its functionality, as it can feel a bit laggy at times. Fortunately though, despite the cheap visual appearance of the screen, it does come loaded with standard features including satellite navigation, Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. You also get a range of other settings to play around with. You know, look at all those, you can do what you want there, so it's very customizable. You also get a lot of safety alerts. So I'm going to go navigation, guidance, safety alerts. Yeah, and look at all of those. But my suggestion is that you do turn most of them off, because to be honest, most of them aren't really necessary, and it will drive you crazy just having the car beep at you all day. But it's good to see that Hyundai is being proactive against the battle of tired drivers in New South Wales, which the New South Wales police would tell you is one of the 3 major killers on our roads. As far as space and practicality goes though, it is better than average for its class. You get a big space there, which is also a wireless charging pad for your phone. You get space here for your keys, phone, wallet, water bottle, etc. You get a fair bit of space in the door trims. As you can see, I put my wallet and a few cables in there. Do note though that it isn't lined at all, it's just bare hard plastic, so don't put anything too loose in there, otherwise it'll just rattle all day long. The boot space, which I'll come to show you, 395 litres, and then if you want more space you can put the rear seats down, in which case you can really fit a fair bit in here. And then as far as the back of the car goes, for a hatchback, pretty decent, but you know, like any hatchback, if you have a tall driver and then adult passengers, it can be quite cramped. But yeah, for the car there is a fair bit of space. Now unfortunately, despite the great amount of equipment and features that this car has, there are a few ergonomic issues, and it's not really like major stuff, it's just things that you sort of expect the car to have given its trim. For instance, if you are reversing, that mirror, the rear passenger mirror, will not automatically fold down. Instead, you're going to use the controls here and manually operate that. Furthermore, you know, the driver's display is quite limited in terms of what it shows. You know, for instance, there's no oil temperature, there's no average speed, and you know, what car doesn't even show those things nowadays? You do, however, get a tire monitor, or tire pressure monitoring system, which it's not showing now, but it will show as you know, you're driving along. Also, the infotainment system, yes, it covers a lot of features, but again, it's just got a few inefficiencies. You know, for instance, if I want to change the radio station, click on radio, go to favorites, and select, let's say, Today FM. And if I want to change it again, I have to go through the exact same process, click favorites, and click something else. So it's a 2-step process when really it should just be a 1-step thing. Like, it's really inefficient. I don't know what they were thinking about there. As good as it is, the navigation system isn't perfect either, and it's just really putting in a new address. I mean, you've got to type out the whole destination before the car will recognize it. It's not like you can start typing and then the car will recognize from there. And again, it's another going out of your way type of process. I mean, it shouldn't be that way. It should be more efficient. But you know, it's not the end of the world. But you know, if you're on the go and you have to do it while you're driving, yeah, obviously it's going to be a bit difficult. Now, the next thing I'm going to talk about is not something that really bothers me personally, because I'm all for the driving side of things, but I know for a lot of Australian buyers this will come across as quite a big issue, and that is the lack of safety features, at least in the manual spec. Now, compared to the automatic version, you're missing out on autonomous emergency braking, lane keeping assist, and adaptive cruise control. You do, however, get blind spot monitoring. I'm going to click that. Yeah, you see it lights up as it does. It also beeps at you if it picks it up, just to remind you in case you missed the flash. Also, compared to the premium model, you are missing out on a fair few features, and you know, those blank buttons sort of indicate that. You know, such as heated seats and cooled seats and front parking sensors and all that. It's not all that bad, but it's never a good look. Another thing worth noting is that while this car looks a lot better than the old one, at least in my opinion, and you do get a few nice touches, such as, you know, there's 18-inch alloy wheels, the SR badging. I'll come to the back, the dual exhaust tips. That's really the only distinguishing features that this car has to tell you it's an SR. So it is quite understated, but at least in my opinion, I don't think that's too much of a bad thing, because I just technically like understated cars that sort of surprise people when you pull away them from the lights. But you would think that Hyundai should have done better to sort of distinguish it from the rest of the i30 range, given its sporty character. Because to the naked eye and someone who doesn't really follow cars that much, they won't be able to tell. So where does that leave us then? So despite facing some shortcomings, I still reckon this car represents sensational value for money. Because regardless of what buyer you are, it satisfies each purpose quite well. If you're someone who just needs a car to get to work, go to the shops, pick up the kids from school, but also wants a little bit of power in the process of doing so, this is perfect. It's got a torquey engine, plenty of space, it's comfortable. And by the same token, if you're more looking for a performance hatch for not a lot of money, I think this is one of the best cars you can buy. Because it's got a great dynamic ability, and now it's got the engine to back it up. And although it may not have the credibility of, say, a Volkswagen Polo GTI, a Ford Fiesta ST, or a Peugeot 208 GTI, those cars are still north of $30,000, and it doesn't come with anywhere as much space and practicality as this does. And just for the record, I bought this car for $26,000. I mean, that's the same price as, say, a base Volkswagen Golf just about. It's phenomenal. If you're looking for a new car, and especially a hatchback, and you haven't already done so, I recommend going to your nearest Hyundai dealership and checking this out immediately, because it will surprise you in every single way possible. Now, admittedly, it has been replaced now by the new i30N line, which shares the same engine, but it's just now got a few accessories and gimmicks from the more hardcore i30N. But you know, the price is still more or less the same, and if you don't want to spend new car money, you can still find the SR as a demo or as a second hand with low kilometers for a few thousand less, and even then you'll still get about a 4-year warranty left. So really, this car represents sensational value for money, and in my opinion, I think as far as hatchbacks go around this price point, this is the most complete car yet. I would never ever thought I would buy a Hyundai, but I couldn't be happier. It's a great car, honestly.